Okay, everybody, review number 3, which has to do with square roots, which, we should remember how to do these. So in order to start this, I just wrote down the first perfect few squares, right? 4, square root of 4 is 2, then square root of 9, 16, 25. I just like to write these down so I can use these to help me in my homework, okay, or in my notes. So I want to break them up. So 18, I need 2 multiples. One of them has to be perfect root. So square root of 9, square root of 2. I chose that because square root of 9 is 3. There is no square root of 2 except for an ugly number, so it's just 3 square root of 2. Oh, we've done this before. 50, I need one of these numbers again. So 25 times 2, so square root of 25, square root of 2. Square root of 25 is 5. There is no easy square root of 2, so I just leave it as 5 times the square root of 2. Okay, this 3 on number 3 is a whole number, so I wrote it down. Okay, but then I broke down the 75. 25 times 3, because I want to use one of these numbers. Square root of 25 is 5. Now this is a whole number. Multiply the 2 whole numbers to get a 15. Square root of 3, just leave square root of 3 because that's just not a nice number. It's an irrational number. Okay, 4, same way. I left the 2 alone. Broke up 24 into square root of 4 times square root of 6. Square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times the square root of 6, okay? Number 5, 16 times 3 is a better combination than 4 and 12. Square root of 16 is 4. Multiply the 2 together. Whole numbers, 5 times 4 is 20. Square root of 3, okay? Pause this anytime if I'm going too fast. Now, I need to multiply whole numbers with whole numbers for number 6. I get 8. Square numbers, square root numbers, I get the square root of 18. I can break down the square root of 18 into 9 and 2. We just did that up here. Square root of 9 is 3, becomes a whole number. 8 times 3 is 24 times the square root of 2. Okay? With exponents, square root means 1/2 power. So if I take half of the 8, I get x4. Okay? 8 is just a bigger version. If I take half the 6, I get x to the 3rd. Half the 10, I get y to the 5th. Okay? Now, 9's different because you can't take half of 11 without getting a decimal. I really don't want x to the 5.5. That's not a good answer, okay? So what I do is I take 1 away from it to make it even. If it's even, I can take half of it, so I make it into x to the 10, x to the 1. I can take this half of that, just x to the 5th, and then I'm left with the square root of x, okay? That has to stay there. 10, same things. I broke it up into 4 times 3 because that's a perfect square. Square root of 4 is 2. I took half of my exponent. I got x to the 6. The square root of 3 is just left there as square root of 3. Okay? Because that's an irrational number. 11, I broke 27 down to 9 times 3. I'm going to take half of the 6. Okay? Square root of 9 is 3. Took half of the 6. I got x to the 3. And square root of 3, I just leave square root of 3 because that's an irrational number. It's an ugly decimal. 20, I've got, break it up into 4 and 5. Square root of 4 is 2. I can't take half of the x to the 5th, so I make it 4 and 1. I wanted to make it an even number. So I can take half of the 4 and get x2. The y to the 10, I can take half of that and make it y to the 5th. Now what's left over? Everything left over, 5 is inside the square root. X is inside the square root, so I left them inside the square root together. Put them together. Okay? 13, 2x is on the outside. It's already been done. Broke 12 into 4 times 3. I'm going to take half of the 8. Half of the 8, so square root of 4 is 2. I take half of the x to the 8. I get x to the 4th, square root of 3. Now, everything on the outside can be multiplied. 4 times 4, I'm sorry, 2 times 2 is 4. x1 with x to the 4th makes x to the 5th. The square root of 3 has to stay in. The reason we're keeping these particular numbers in that don't have square roots, I'll just give you an example. Here's square root of 3. Oh, there's square root of 3. Much better number than this ugly irrational decimal, okay? All right, back to this, okay? 3x squared comes out. 72, good combination. 36 times 2. Square root of 36, I know, is 6. The x to the 5th has to be broken down. I need an even number, so I take 1 away. X 4th, x1. I can take half of that makes x2. Now what's on the outside? Everything on the outside needs to be combined. 3 times 6 is 18. X to the 4th, because x2, and then what's left inside is my square root of 2 and my x. Last problem I did, which doesn't have much to do with square roots, is a piecewise function. There it is. I just reviewed that again on how to do a piecewise function. So you can look at equations 1, 2, and 3. I found the equations, and I found their borderline. So that's all I have.